This is a clip from an early season matchup back in 2019. The undefeated 4-0 Southeast Polk High School is taking on Dowling Catholic, led by their senior guard leading the entire state in scoring, Caitlin Clark. Someone that at this time was already ranked the 4th prospect in the country. But as this crowd would quickly find out, that should have probably been much higher. The Southeast Polk Rams just couldn't keep up, and the reactions from the crowd as the game went on were just priceless. The confidence and trash talk had been swapped out for face palms and checking the time to see how much longer they were going to have to endure this. Clark would finish the night with 42 points. It went on to be the first of many times Caitlin quickly made people regret their trash talk. Now, one thing we need to make clear before we go any further is that when it comes to trash talking Caitlin Clark, it's rarely one-sided. Caitlin's become quite well known for her on-the-court chirps and taunts. In fact, the head coach of the reigning WNBA champion Aces, Becky Hammond, said that no one talks more crap than Caitlin Clark. So it's really not a coincidence that so much on-court drama seems to follow her. But what makes the whole situation so fun and exciting is just how consistently she's able to back up that trash talk. Over the last 2 years, women's basketball has exploded in popularity. And while there's several factors at play, the real catalyst was last year's NCAA tournament, a time when Caitlin Clark was going nuclear. 26 points in the first round, 22 in the second, 31 in the Sweet 16. Then in the Elite 8 against Louisville, she knocks in 8 threes on the way to 41 points to go along with 12 assists and the win.
Clark firing again. Oh my! Clark will fire and hit! Clark decides to take, why not?
A game that also featured a moment that shows just how different her personality is after stepping on the court. After knocking down a shot, she celebrates by throwing up the John Cena "You Can't See Me," a gesture that at the time seemed to be clearly directed at the Louisville players. Then later in that same game, Haley Van Lith of Louisville, one of the top guards in the country, says something to Caitlin Clark, and she clearly responds by telling her, "You're down 15, shut up." Then by the end of the following round of the tournament, pretty much everyone in the country now knew the name Caitlin Clark. She led Iowa past the heavy favorites to win the entire thing in South Carolina. She managed back-to-back 40 bombs, finishing with 41 points and 8 assists. The night was full of highlights. On one end, she's knocking in 10 threes.
A deep one. You bet!
On the other, she's leaving South Carolina players wide open, daring them to shoot from 3.
She doesn't even look at her, waves her hand as if to say, I don't care about you, I'm not defending you.
So now comes the national championship game, where Iowa ends up falling short to LSU, which was followed by Angel Reese, the face of the team, decided to make some very directed taunts towards Caitlin Clark. She ends up throwing up her famous "You Can't See Me," then she lets her know exactly where that championship ring is going.
And Angel Reese knows a ring is coming.
I wanted to pick her pocket, but I had a moment at the end of the game, and I was in my bag. I was in my moment, yeah.
But now flash forward a year, and Caitlin Clark has solidified herself as not just the biggest name in women's college basketball, but one of the biggest names in all of sports. She's averaging an absurd 32 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds.
Comes Clark, how will she go for history?
She becomes the all-time scorer in women's history before going on to dethrone Pete Maravich for the all-time scorer in all of college basketball. But while those accolades and the production were incredible, come March, all her focus and attention is on her last chance to bring home an NCAA title. In the first round of the tournament, she drops 27, 32 in the second round, then 29 in the Sweet 16 to advance to the Elite 8, where Iowa would be taking on Angel Reese and LSU. We got the rematch we were all hoping for. Then just to add to the narrative surrounding the matchup, Haley Van Lith, the player that Caitlin Clark potentially gave the "You Can't See Me" to before reminding her that she's down 15 and to shut up. Well, after Clark sent her packing a year ago, she ended up transferring to LSU. So with that amount of history and beef between in the first round of the tournament, she drops 27, 32 in the second round. And thankfully, she didn't disappoint.
Clark connects. Here's Clark driving it. Clark backdoor. Martin, easy
She has more size and length.
Clark, you bet. Catch, fire, and hit. Evades Van Lith and drains it. Sick before that UCLA game. That's how sick she was. Clark steps back, fires. You bet. Clark pulls up another deep one. Is good.
She dropped 41 points, 12 assists, and 7 rebounds, leading Iowa past Angel Reese, Haley Van Lith, and LSU and into the Final Four. She made a statement that while you might get the best of her one night, it's probably not a smart long-term decision to become her enemy. Now, while unfortunately Iowa would fall short in the championship once again, luckily for Clark, there really wasn't much time for that defeat to sink in.
With the first pick, the Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
There were now going to be more eyes on the league than ever before, something that would benefit every single player in the league. But while most were likely excited about that aspect of her arrival, the constant focus on her and more importantly, the constant interview questions about her across the league seemed to quickly get to a lot of players. There was a clear target put on the back of Caitlin Clark. Now, stuff like that for top rookies coming in is really not all that uncommon, and I'm sure even Caitlin Clark would recognize that to some degree, she put that target on herself. But there's a massive difference between playing pesky defense and some trash talk and this.
Good. Kennedy Carter now with 12 points off the bench.
There's really no defense for this whatsoever. It was a blatant, blindsided cheap shot. The slow motion angle shows that clearly. Then the stare down and walk away makes her intentions blatantly obvious. Now, what really made the situation such massive news is who else is on Chandler's team. None other than Angel Reese. You would think that after what we saw in the tournament, that Reese wouldn't mind getting on the good side of Caitlin. But her reaction to this incident made it clear she's got no intentions to do so. Right as the hit happens, she springs out of her seat on the bench, clapping and rooting Kennedy on. Then later in that same game, she decides to get in on the action herself with a shove on Clark. While clearly not as blatant, given the context, clearly intentional. Luckily, all these antics didn't have the effect they desired. While Clark didn't have a stellar night, she did a little bit of everything and had some big moments down the stretch that were huge for the Fever, being able to squeak out just their second win of the season after starting out 1-8. Following that game, no apologies were handed out.
You a little bit?
Yeah. I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions.
Did she say anything?
I don't know what she said.
What'd you say to her?
I didn't say anything.
That's enough. We're good. She's good.
The game and reactions following had social media going crazy, which ended up creating a lot of hype and anticipation for the two's next meeting, which would come only a couple weeks later. From the tip, it was clear. Caitlin was looking to make a statement.
Against the Mystics, they want to clean some things up on Reese. Clark gets freed up, and Clark penetrating. A lot's going to happen out of that. Clark scoreless, it's 5:51 left in the first quarter, and she posts. Largest lead for either team has been 7. Clark with the kick out to Samuelson. 9 total points in the game, sets it back from 3. Clark penetrating to 3, rebounding an advantage. Clark pulls, fires. Post feed. Boston. Someone forgot about.
Come the end of the night, while Chandler had a really solid 18 points and Angel Reese managed a double-double, Clark stole the show. She finished with 23 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds, missing just 4 shots the entire game. The last victim of Caitlin so far is actually none other than who many think is the WNBA GOAT, Diana Taurasi. While initially there was some hope that we might get a passing of the torch moment between the GOAT and college's all-time scorer, possibly the greatest prospect in the history of the league, it quickly became apparent that wasn't going to be happening. In fact, after some comments on ESPN, it was starting to look like Taurasi wasn't even too sold on Caitlin.
Make an argument for Paige.
I'm taking Paige. Next question.
So if you had the number 1 pick this year, you would take Paige over Caitlin?
Absolutely.
I like that energy.
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Creating a ton of hype and anticipation for their first matchup.
Meeting between these two icons of women's basketball.
The vet and the rook, Taurasi and Clark. The reality of their first meeting is here.
After those comments, whether there was really a beef between the two or not, the media absolutely ran with it.
This is Caitlin Clark's first visit against Diana Taurasi. And it's going to be special. This is why I ain't missing
Coming
this.
off the screen, Allen goes under.
Boston with a nice rim run. I said, what's your playing weight now? She said, 155.
Well, there were a few factors that. Good job by Cunningham to quickly get on Clark.
Clark seeks the screen and got the layup and one.
Triples coming into the game.
Logo! It's within one or tied on a three. Boston underneath.
While it definitely wasn't Caitlin's most efficient night, she led the Fever past the Mercury, finishing just 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, 15 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists. Just 2 weeks later, the two would match up again. This time Taurasi would be on the bench, but with her in attendance, Caitlin Clark was still looking to make a statement.
Clark is coming off the masterful.
Yeah, she does a good job stepping in when she needs to.
Clark wants to play faster. Oh, she finds it. Clark working on Cunningham, gets inside. Clark gets it to go. And the foul. Clark stepping back.
Caitlin finished the night with 20 points, 6 rebounds and 13 assists, shooting 8 for 16 from the field, and once again leading the Fever past the Mercury. The third matchup between the two teams came just a few nights ago, where Caitlin, with her most rest in well over a year, was ready to emphasize that while yes, reality is coming, it's actually coming for Taurasi.
Here is Clark off the screen, launches.
Reality is coming.
Difficult, just one, not only physically, but also mentally.
20-year veteran Diana Taurasi dialing back.
Reality is coming.
Diana with the 4th fastest pace of play. Diana comes up with a turnover. Here is Clark. This time it's Smith. Here's Mitchell. Oh, behind the deep. Clark step back on a deep 2. Oh,
reality is coming.
The screen, finds some space, and delivers.
She dropped 29 points, 5 rebounds, and 10 assists, once again shooting 8 for 16 from the field. The Fever took home their 3rd victory of the season over the Phoenix Mercury. Things are starting to click for Caitlin and this team on all cylinders. So really now the question is who's going to be the next victim?
You know, what Caitlin's been able to do in her short career so far has just been nothing short of remarkable.